I first met Roman to talk to him on a basketball court. Tradition was that the house officers would organize a basketball team to play the medical school basketball team. Roman had played basketball for the University of Arizona. About the end of the first period, I came out of the game and Roman was leaning against a wall, and his greeting to me was, "Now I know what it's like to be in pulmonary edema." So that I learned that this guy was always thinking about the patient, always thinking about what's going on with the patient.
Well, in those days, I was a cardiology fellow, and Roman was just completing his residency training. So I was, quotes, a little bit ahead of him. I would hasten to add that was the last time I was ever ahead of Roman DeScantis in anything.
When I first was introduced to him, he just impressed me as being a very quiet, unassuming, nice person.
During the course of the 4 years, he seemed to perform very well, and much to everyone's surprise, at the end of those 4 years, Roman was #1 in his class. He kept that a secret for 4 years, but he hasn't been able to keep it a secret since.
When I think about the history of the cardiology division here, it spans almost 100 years now, and there really are two sort of towering figures. One is Paul Dudley White, who founded the division in the early 1900s, and the other is clearly Roman DeScantis, who has been the key leader within cardiology for over 40 years. And I think really Roman carries on the legacy of excellence in patient care, commitment to teaching, and academic pursuits that was really started by Paul White. So there's a nice legacy that goes on there.
What makes Roman unique is the way he performs in all areas of professional and personal life. He is the single best physician I have had the pleasure of knowing, and the several decades I've been a student and had my professional career here.
Roman's warmth and attention to people comes clearly through when he takes care of patients. He loves his patients and they love him.
I just think he's such a special man. I don't know how else to describe it other than I really feel I owe my life to him, just because of the constant concern and special care he gives me.
His talent at the bedside is unrivaled by anybody that I've ever been privileged around with. His ability to engage the patient, his ability to engage everybody who's around the bedside, and then to explain things, complicated things, in ways that are understandable to people.
He's a person who harbors an enormous amount of clinical wisdom, which is more than just a knowledge base. It's part knowledge base, it's part common sense, it's part having a photographic memory.
You know, Roman really knows the edges, the front edges of cardiology. But what he does is he integrates that with the traditions that he learned and the traditions of caretaking, of listening to a patient.
I came to know him in a whole new way, and especially when what was very likely to happen happened, when I got very critically ill and my family had to interact, and in very emotional circumstances for them, even in the worst of situations, a certain kind of security that he was offering to them made an everlasting impression on them. One of the most sensitive and emotional events reflecting that feeling came just recently in December of '05, when my youngest daughter gave birth to her son, and within seconds of his birth, she asked if I wanted to know what she was going to name him, and certainly I did. And her sister and my wife were in the room. We were all together, and my illness still brings forth lots of tears, but when she said Roman, we just all melted.
Roman was the epitome of the old tradition at Mass General. Your first obligation always as a physician was to your patient, but right up close to it was your obligation to teach.
He has served in multiple teaching capacities, ranging from direct mentoring of our fellows He does morning report twice a week, and that's really the highlight of our fellowship, is the time that the fellows spend with him.
Roman is one of the best teachers I've ever been exposed to. This is one of the reasons I wanted to come to the MGH for cardiology training. He's an outstanding teacher, an outstanding mentor, and I'm still learning from Roman all the time. One of the advantages I've had with being his roommate for 22 years.
For him, part of the teaching process is really part mentoring and going out of his way in a completely selfless fashion to help other people advance.
One of the most wonderful things about Roman is that he has always thought about the whole institution when it comes, as he does with everything, but certainly when it comes to philanthropic support.
He is totally engrossed in the welfare of the MGH in terms of not only making it the best possible and participating in giving the best patient care that he possibly can, but trying to provide the resources that allow the MGH to grow and to stay current with all the challenges that medicine is facing these days.
Well, I think he's so successful as a fundraiser because he so much believes in what he's doing, and people can tell he believes in what he's doing.
He loves the Mass General Hospital, and he wants to do as much as he can for it, and his patients understand that, and therefore they want to help the Mass General Hospital. Roman simply is just a wonderful person. He's a great guy. He was a good athlete. He likes to play golf. He's just fun to be with. He's got a great sense of humor.
He's a punster and a jokester, loves dirty jokes especially.
He's an incredible grandfather. He's very silly with his grandchildren.
He makes tons of puns. The time when we were in Disney, I went to go see the character Winnie the Pooh, and he just made up like this weird joke, and he said, "Make sure you don't get poo on your hands." It was awkward.
He has this wonderful gift of being able to crack off a little joke, and he'd often whisper it to you in your ear while you're at a serious conference, and he'd be sitting there stone-faced, and I'd be laughing out loud, and everybody'd be looking at me.
He likes to travel. He likes to travel with Ruth. Because of his stature, he's been invited to lecture in addition to providing care around the world. I mean, he has cared for a number of dignitaries in multiple parts of the world.
It doesn't matter whether you're a luminary or just an ordinary person. He gives, I think, every single one of his patients the same amount of time, the same amount of care, same amount of concern. He makes you feel extremely special.
It's customary to hear parents talk a lot about how proud they are of their children. And I think in the DeScantis family, it's customary to hear the children talk about how proud they are of their parents.
The moment I would start telling him what I think about all that he's done for me and meant to me through my career, he doesn't like to take compliments. He would be out the door quickly because he's so humble.
A day doesn't go by without my thinking about him in some way and how he would approach problems, how he would try to counsel families, how he would help other people make important decisions.
I'm happy to know the guy. The best thing ever happened to me was the day that Dr. Boston introduced me to him.
He has been my mentor, my very close friends, and I feel very attached to him. And it's hard for me to express this without, breaking down, but I loved him 35 years ago, and I love him now.
He is the epitome of the great doctor and the great teacher, and one of the nicest people to work with that I know. Roman, you're the best.